Yeah.
I play dumb. I say, they made another Star Wars movie.
And we know then maybe that Luke Skywalker has a beard still and has a body still in the next movie.
Which movie? Well, you know, I love driving the Disney executives crazy, because what are they going to do, fire me?
Yeah, right.
I'm in that really calming lull between the time after you make the movie and before it comes out. They don't want you to say anything.
Right, yeah.
And I'm good at that. Mm-hmm. But like I say on my Twitter account, people are constantly saying, when's the trailer drop?
Right.
What's the title? Like they're going to leave.
You don't know. Yeah, you have nothing to do with any of that.
Disney has made Luke Skywalker gay, and Mark Hamill is absolutely furious, along with the fans who grew up loving the real Star Wars, the one created by George Lucas. For years, Disney has been chipping away at the legacy of the original trilogy, twisting beloved characters to fit their agenda. They turned Luke into a bitter old man in The Last Jedi, erased Han Solo's legacy, and sidelined classic heroes in favor of pushing their new version of Star Wars. But now, they've taken it a step further. They've officially rewritten Luke's identity, forcing a narrative that was never part of his story, and labeling him as LGBT. And the fans? They're outraged, not because of representation, not because of diversity, but because this isn't Luke Skywalker. This is just another attempt to inject identity politics into a franchise that was never about any of this. And the worst part? They're pretending this was always the case. Even Mark Hamill, who has always been diplomatic, who has supported fans of all backgrounds, and who has remained a team player despite his disagreements, even he has had enough. This is the same Mark Hamill who once said, "I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for Luke in The Last Jedi." The same man who called Disney's version of Luke Jake Skywalker because even he didn't recognize his own character. And now, Disney's latest move might just be the thing that finally pushes him over the edge. But the real question is, why is Disney so obsessed with rewriting Star Wars history? Is this finally the moment where fans say, enough is enough? Today, we break down the full story, Mark Hamill's reaction, and why Disney just made one of the biggest mistakes in Star Wars history.
Bravo for them to make Rey a orphan from the desert who discovers inner powers, inherits a robot with important information that leads to the destruction of the Death Star. It's fresh because it's a woman.
When we last saw Luke in the end of Return of the Jedi to when we meet him now in The Last Jedi.
That's the mystery of the ages. Since it's no longer my story and there's a new protagonist, I had to try and fill in that for myself. It's not important to the story, but it is for the actor to try and figure out, who is this guy? How did the most optimistic, hopeful character in the galaxy turn into this hermit who says it's time for the Jedi to end? I read that and I said, what? I mean, that's not what a Jedi does. I mean, a Jedi is optimistic. A Jedi has tenacity. He never gives up. He doesn't secrete himself on an island. But you'll see. I mean, the wait for 8 is nearly over.
And do you think we could see Luke again in a Star Wars movie? In some capacity?
No. Look, I had my time. I'm very grateful for George letting me be a part of it, but I think it's time to let the kids take over. I had such closure, you know? I find it the irony of Luke dying of an overdose of the Force. Who knew that was a thing? Obi-Wan should have said, use the Force in moderation.
Yoda would have said that.
Use the Force, but don't overdo it. You know, Yoda, they should have told me. There was no warning. Who knew you could OD on the Force? It was kind of hard because my story's so dark. You're facing your own mortality. You want the Jedi to end, and you're telling people, get off my lawn, like some cranky old dude. But I'm one of those guys that was saying to the Lucasfilm people, I said, we've got to get everybody that's still around to be in this movie. Where's Lando?
Yeah.
I want Billy D back.
Billy D.
But see, I didn't get to meet anybody. I read the script. I mean, people say, were you shocked that you were only in the last minute of the movie of Force Awakens? I said, oh, no, I was shocked that Han Solo is gone. So that means I'll never get to have a scene with him. I'll probably never never get to work with Harrison again. But you know, you got to move on. I mean, it's not our story anymore. It's the next generation. And I told Brian this. It's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him. Because, you know, it's not my character to decide. It belongs to other people. They just rent it out to me. My character always represented hope and optimism. And now here I am, very pessimistic and disillusioned and sort of demoralized. No matter how this comes out, if I'm wonderful, it's because of him. And if it's terrible, it's also his fault.
People are now saying that Luke Skywalker is gay and that Disney is pushing LGBTQ themes into Star Wars. That's right. Disney's Star Wars has taken one of the most iconic characters in cinematic history and forced their agenda onto him. For years, we've watched them dismantle everything George Lucas built, twisting the original trilogy and turning it into a platform for identity politics and virtue signaling. Now they're rewriting Luke Skywalker's story, claiming he's part of the LGBTQ community. Mark Hamill, who has portrayed Luke for decades, is reportedly angered by how the character's legacy is being handled. While Hamill has often defended creative reinterpretations of his character, fans speculate that this latest move might be going too far, even for him. Today, we're diving into exactly what's happening, who's behind it, and why this is yet another example of how Disney's Star Wars continues to alienate its core fan base.
You know, after all these years, Lucasfilm is still saying, Mark, we shouldn't talk about that. I said, no, we gotta own it. When I read it, I said, this is awful. Why are we doing this? I said, I'm not doing this. And I got a phone call from George, which usually meant Jane May, his assistant. I picked up the phone. Hi, Jane. My goodness, George. Who? But no, he explained to me, do you realize when that came out, we've been in the movie theater for almost a year and a half. So George says, look, it's just a way to keep the merchandising fresh in people's minds. And, you know, it's really a favor to me for those merchandisers. So, no, but I'm not singing. Now, I personally love to sing. I did a Broadway musical, but I didn't think it was right for Luke to sing. And Carrie had a wonderful voice.
Hello? Can anyone hear me? Who are you? Where'd you call out? It sounded like you needed help. No, I do. Think you can get me out of this? Hold still. I know who you are. Why can you help me? As you asked. I did 100 things about Joey. It terrified me as a boy in person, but you.
Disney Star Wars is going to, in the future, lean towards exploring Luke Skywalker's LGBTQ identity.
What?
Oh, Luke Skywalker is LGBTQ now.
Oh, okay.
Because they wrote a book last year in which he is bi. So it's canon.
Whatever. Okay. Did you guys see the trailer for the Mario Kart show that they did with Pedro Pascal on?
Oh, that was funny. That was real funny.
Hilarious. Yeah. And the reason that I bring it up with this is because with all the complex characters from HBO, I'm Yoshi and I'm bi. I'm Toad and I'm bi.
Yeah.
I'm also bi.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, SNL is slowly starting to poke a little bit of fun at the left, but way too late and far too little. But yeah, now this is a really good way to just
making everybody
get rid of the few Star Wars fans.
Mark Hamill's frustration with Disney's Star Wars franchise seems to have reached new heights as rumors circulate that Luke Skywalker is now being rewritten as gay. For Hamill, this latest move by Disney only deepens his long-standing issues with how the company, under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, has handled the franchise and, more specifically, his character. While Hamill has previously voiced his disappointment with the creative direction of the sequels, especially The Last Jedi, This new controversy appears to be another example of forcing a modern political agenda into a beloved story without regard for its original spirit. Hamill has always been protective of Luke Skywalker, a character he played for decades and helped turn into a symbol of hope, courage, and redemption. When asked in interviews about the changes made to Luke in The Last Jedi, Hamill openly expressed his discontent, saying, "I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for this character." He also famously remarked, "Maybe he's Jake Skywalker, he's not my Luke Skywalker." Now, with the latest push to reframe Luke as part of the LGBTQ community, it's clear that Hamill's relationship with Disney's Star Wars remains strained. Fans who grew up with the original trilogy are rallying behind Hamill, agreeing that Disney's constant changes feel less like organic storytelling and more like deliberate attempts to inject identity politics into Star Wars. For many, this is the culmination of years of frustration with Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. Since Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm, Kennedy has made it clear that she wants Star Wars to reflect modern values. But critics argue that this has come at the expense of good storytelling and respect for the source material. Hamill's dissatisfaction isn't just limited to Luke's personal arc. He has also taken issue with the broader handling of the Star Wars sequels, which he believes deviated significantly from George Lucas's original vision. Before Disney bought Lucasfilm, Lucas had outlined a plan for episodes 7, 8, and 9. However, Kennedy and her team discarded those ideas in favor of a new direction, one that Hamill and many fans feel has derailed the franchise. In one particularly revealing interview, Hamill expressed frustration with how Luke was turned into a bitter recluse who abandons his friends and loses faith. He remarked, "Jedi don't give up. Even if Luke had a problem, he would maybe take a year to regroup." This portrayal of Luke as a grumpy, disillusioned hermit was already a sore point for Hamill. Now, with rumors of Luke's sexuality being rewritten, it seems to have crossed a new line for both Hamill and a large portion of the fan base. To be clear, Hamill has been a vocal supporter of LGBTQ rights in real life, and he has even said that fans are free to interpret Luke however they want. However, there's a difference between fans creating their own interpretations and Disney officially altering a legacy character's identity for what many see as purely political reasons. This is where Hamill reportedly draws the line. He isn't angry about representation itself, but rather about Disney rewriting an established character to serve an agenda, something he has repeatedly criticized in the past. Fans have long accused Kathleen Kennedy of using Star Wars as a platform for political messaging rather than focusing on the storytelling that made the franchise great. The latest controversy over Luke's sexuality feels to many like another attempt to push boundaries without respect for the original characters or the universe they inhabit. Hamill, who worked closely with George Lucas and had some knowledge of his original plans for the sequel trilogy, likely feels that Lucas's vision is being discarded in favor of something unrecognizable. In many ways, Hamill's displeasure mirrors that of the fan base. Longtime Star Wars fans who cherish the original trilogy feel increasingly alienated by Disney's approach. From Luke's characterization in The Last Jedi to the lack of clear direction in the sequels, and now the apparent push to redefine Luke's identity, many believe that Kathleen Kennedy and Disney are out of touch with what made Star Wars special in the first place. As Mark Hamill once said, "It's not my story anymore." For many fans, it's starting to feel like it's not their Star Wars anymore either.
Not their Star Wars anymore either.
Mark Hamill front and center, because you can't bring back Luke Skywalker without Mark Hamill.
And so we told him what we were thinking of doing.
The more I thought about it, I thought this is like really an opportunity that was completely unexpected, but something that almost was a responsibility. In other words, if they're saying they want me to do this, how can I say no?
Over the holidays, this would have been December 2019, John and I drove up together to Mark's house, and we brought the script, and we brought Luke Skywalker's wardrobe, and we brought Grogu with us.
And we knew that if we could pull this off, it would represent so much to so many people, and especially to Mark. You know, to let him come in there and show Luke at this moment and let it be a celebration.
Mark was excited and he was in and he got ready to see how are we going to make the magic happen, which is good because we had to figure it out yet.
Disney's Star Wars is now leaning toward exploring Luke Skywalker's LGBTQ identity. This follows a 2022 short story considered part of Disney's Star Wars canon that depicted Luke as being attracted to a man. Don't dismiss this as a one-off. Nearly every major Marvel and DC character now has a gay version, and some are even trying to do the same to Wednesday Addams. But this isn't about better storytelling or meaningful representation. If it were, they'd introduce new characters instead of rewriting existing ones. This is about activists taking control of something popular. It's about claiming ownership of a franchise that millions love, planting a big rainbow flag in the middle of it, and loudly declaring, "This belongs to us now."
Now.
So how long did you have to keep that secret?
Well, the contrast was when we did Star Wars, nobody cared. You know, I read it and I gave it to my friend to read. I said that this is the goofiest thing I've ever read. And then he called and he said, "You're right, it is goofy. Can I give it to Meredith?" I said, "Sure." I passed it all around. By the second film, that's when the scrutiny became more intense. The way we filmed it, Vader said, "You don't know the truth. Obi-Wan killed your father." I thought, wow, what a spectacular twist. And it's just as you see in the film. The director, Irvin Kershner, said, "I'm going to tell you something. I know it. George Lucas knows it. And when I tell you, you'll know it. But if it leaks, we'll know it was you." I said, what? And he handed me the piece of paper that said, "I am your father." I was shocked. I said, is that true? He said, "Well, you search your..."
Disney's Star Wars agenda didn't start overnight. Ever since they bought the franchise from George Lucas, they've injected it with identity politics, virtue signaling, and radical activism at every turn. The goal? Not to tell great stories, but to push a message. It all began when Disney put Kathleen Kennedy in charge of Lucasfilm. Remember what happened in the sequels? Luke Skywalker, the hero we grew up with, was reduced to a sad, bitter old man hiding from the world. Han Solo, the coolest guy in the galaxy, was thrown away like a washed-up nobody. Instead of real character development, we got Rey, a protagonist so flawless she never struggled, never failed, and never needed to grow. Why? Because storytelling didn't matter. Disney's priority was pushing the message: women are superior. Men are weak, useless, or villains. But they didn't stop there. They brought in activists like Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who has openly admitted that she enjoys making men uncomfortable with her work. In her own words, "I enjoy making men uncomfortable." And yet, Disney still handed her the reins of a future Star Wars film, proudly announcing her as the first woman and person of color to direct a Star Wars movie. Not because of her storytelling skills, but because of her identity. This pattern has repeated again and again. It's not about honoring what made Star Wars great. It's about rewriting it to fit today's woke narrative. Stormtroopers suddenly became a diverse army overnight. Legacy characters like Luke, Leia, and Han were either sidelined, ruined, or slapped with identity labels. And now, Disney is pushing Luke Skywalker as part of the LGBTQ community. But here's the reality. Disney's obsession with these agendas hasn't made Star Wars better. It's made it worse. The movies have underperformed. The shows are poorly rated. Even Star Wars-themed park attractions have struggled. Yet instead of learning from these failures, Disney keeps doubling down. They don't care if they destroy what fans love. They only care about pushing a message. And when people criticize them, they dismiss them as toxic or bigoted. But the truth is, most fans don't care about political messaging. They just want Star Wars to be Star Wars. No lectures, no forced narratives, just great stories set in a galaxy far, far away. Yet time and time again, Disney proves that they don't want fans like us. They want activist fans, people who will cheer for every forced political agenda, no matter how much it ruins the franchise. And now, after years of making Star Wars a joke, they've finally done what many feared was inevitable. They've made Luke Skywalker part of their LGBTQ agenda. From the beginning, this was their plan. Slap identity labels on every beloved character. Rewrite history. Force modern identity politics into a universe that was created in 1977.
Mark Hamill tells the truth in an interview in 2016 with Kathleen Kennedy sitting right next to him.
Mark, Oh, I'm sorry, I have dialogue? Yeah. I'm used to just staring intensely.
Boom. Roasted.
When the cameras were rolling, Mark Hamill didn't hold back about how he really felt regarding Luke Skywalker's role in The Force Awakens. He was sidelined, appearing only at the very end of the film, without a single line of dialogue, just an old hermit isolated on an island while the galaxy was at war. Hamill, and countless Star Wars fans, agree that Luke Skywalker should have played a much bigger role in the sequel trilogy. And when Hamill voiced his frustrations, Kathleen Kennedy's reaction made it clear she wasn't happy. But is Mark Hamill wrong? Or was he simply saying what every real Star Wars fan has been thinking all along?
So I called my agent and I said, who am I playing again? They said, you're Luke. Well, first of all, my agent called and said, you got the part and they're sending the script over. And I said, oh, great. And they sent the script over, and the title page said, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, as taken from the Journal of the Wills, Saga #1, The Star Wars, okay? From the screen test, Harrison was the leading man. Like, he was, to me, just the perfect leading man. And I was sort of the annoying sidekick, When I read the title page, I went, oh, so Harrison's Luke Skywalker. I can't remember what character I am. I get to the part where they describe Luke Skywalker, and they said, he's a teenager. And I go, wait a second. Harrison's a really good actor, but I don't think he could be this. It was kind of hard because my story's so dark. You're facing your own mortality. You want the Jedi to end, and you're telling people, get off my lawn, like some cranky old dude. But I'm one of those guys that was saying to the Lucasfilm people, I said, we've got to get everybody that's still around to be in this movie. Where's Lando?
Yeah.
I want Billy D back.
Billy D.
But see, I didn't get to meet anybody. I read the script. I mean, people say, were you shocked that you were only in the last minute of the movie of Force Awakens? I said, oh, no, I was shocked that Han Solo is gone. So that means I'll never get to have a scene with him. I'll probably never get to work with Harrison again. But, you got to move on. I mean, it's not our story anymore. It's the next generation.
When I got the call from my agent telling me I'd landed a role in Star Wars, I was excited, but I wasn't sure who I was playing. They told me, you're Luke. At first, I was confused. The script they sent over had the title, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, as taken from the Journal of the Wills, Saga #1, The Star Wars. When I saw that, I assumed Harrison Ford was playing Luke. To me, he was the perfect leading man, and I felt more like the annoying sidekick. Then I got to the description of Luke Skywalker, a teenager. Wait a second, I thought. Harrison's a great actor, but he can't play this. Years later, when I read the script for The Last Jedi, it was hard. Luke's story had become dark. He was facing his own mortality, wanting the Jedi to end, telling people to get off my lawn like some cranky old hermit. I kept telling Lucasfilm, we have to bring back everyone who's still around for this movie. Where's Lando? When I read The Force Awakens, people asked if I was shocked that I was only in the last minute of the movie. No, I was shocked that Han Solo was gone. That meant I'd never share a scene with him again. Never get to work with Harrison again. But I had to accept it. This isn't our story anymore. It belongs to the next generation. Yet now, woke activists claim that Luke Skywalker is gay, and Disney has officially backed this idea by categorizing him as LGBTQ+ on Wikipedia, the Star Wars fan encyclopedia. According to Disney's canon, this classification comes from the 2022 short story Luke on the Bright Side, published in Stories of Jedi and Sith by Lucasfilm Press. The story supposedly suggests that Luke had romantic feelings for another male character, Sergeant Rhea Hollis of the Alliance Special Forces. But here's the problem. The story doesn't actually show any romantic scenes or clear evidence of attraction. Yet activist writer Sam Maggs, who has a history of pushing progressive narratives in her work, pushed this interpretation. And Wikipedia used it as justification to label Luke as LGBTQ+, sparking backlash among fans. As Bounding Into Comics pointed out, the short story doesn't provide concrete proof of Luke's romantic interest, but it was enough for Disney and Wikipedia to rewrite his identity. This isn't a one-time thing. Disney has been pushing LGBTQ+ representation in Star Wars for years. In 2016, Vanity Fair interviewed The Force Awakens director J.J. Abrams, who stated that Star Wars needed more non-straight characters. Around the same time, Mark Hamill himself made comments suggesting that Luke's sexuality was open to interpretation. He said, "If you think Luke is gay, of course he is. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. Judge Luke by his character, not by who he loves." While Hamill likely meant to be inclusive, Disney took it as an opportunity to officially rewrite Luke's identity. Not everyone has accepted this change. Popular Star Wars commentator Eckhart questioned the logic behind Disney's sudden shift, asking what rationale they had for adding Luke to the LGBTQ+ category. Meanwhile, Queer as Folk creator Russell T. Davies took things even further, claiming in an interview that Luke and Han Solo were always a couple. He even joked, they were banging away on the Millennium Falcon. While his comments were likely meant to stir discussion, they highlight the ongoing effort to rewrite the core dynamics of Star Wars. Even sci-fi site Tor weighed in with a 2016 opinion piece titled "Do Not Make Luke Skywalker Another Tragic Gay Character." The writer, M. Asher Perrin, argued that suddenly making Luke gay, without any real build-up, would turn his story into a tragedy. It would overshadow his arc of hope, redemption, and self-discovery, reducing it to a statement about his sexual orientation instead of his heroism. Adding to the confusion, William Shatner, Captain Kirk himself, reminded fans in 2021 that, in the original Star Wars expanded universe, Luke had a wife, Mara Jade, and a son, Ben Skywalker. This only underscores how Disney's new canon has disregarded decades of established lore in favor of pushing a modern agenda. But Luke's reclassification is just part of Disney's broader push for diversity in Star Wars. Over the years, they've made several controversial changes, including adding preferred pronouns for all characters on Wikipedia. This move sparked massive backlash. Fans felt it was unnecessary and detracted from the escapist nature of Star Wars. Some, however, praised it as a step toward inclusivity. But despite the controversy, Disney and Wikipedia refused to address fan concerns. When the Western Standard reached out to Disney for comment on the issue, they received no response. Disney's obsession with identity politics doesn't stop with its handling of legacy characters. Under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Lucasfilm has repeatedly hired writers and directors with overt activist agendas. One example is Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, a Pakistani filmmaker and activist who was recently announced as the director of an upcoming Star Wars film. In a public statement, Obaid-Chinoy said, "It's 2024. It's about time we have a woman shaping a story in a galaxy far, far away." Mainstream outlets like CNN celebrated her as the first woman and person of color to direct a Star Wars movie. But fans were quick to point out that Kathleen Kennedy has already been running Lucasfilm for nearly a decade. She's played a huge role in shaping the franchise's direction. So why pretend this is groundbreaking? Despite the failures of recent films and TV shows, Kennedy continues to double down on identity-driven storytelling. In an interview with the New York Times, she stated that storytelling must be representative of all people. Similarly, showrunner Leslie Headland, who is behind the upcoming Disney Plus series The Acolyte, echoed these sentiments. She's openly discussed how difficult it has been to create a Star Wars series in a fan base dominated by men. Headland has suggested that some of the backlash against her show is rooted in sexism, stating, "Anyone who engages in bigotry, racism, or hate speech, I don't consider them a fan." But here's the issue. The Acolyte hasn't even premiered yet, and it's already being ridiculed as the woke light by fans tired of Disney's constant virtue signaling. Many believe that Disney no longer cares about preserving the spirit of Star Wars. Instead, they're focused on catering to niche activist groups at the expense of the core audience. George Lucas' timeless story of redemption and hope has now become a battleground for ideological control. Fans are left wondering, can Star Wars ever return to what made it great? Mark Hamill's disappointment reflects what many feel. This isn't the Star Wars we grew up loving. If you're tired of seeing a beloved franchise rewritten for ideological purposes, now is the time to speak up. Make your voice heard. Keep the discussion alive. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the future of Star Wars.